So yeah, man, everybody online has been talking about this J. Cole song, Clouds, that he just released. And I've had a chance to sit with it for a few days and I have my thoughts. So I've been seeing a lot of discourse online, especially on X, about J. Cole fans, people arguing he is the best rapper from his generation, and people saying he has been writing better raps than anybody that's out there. And I see it turning into like a Kendrick Lamar conversation. And I just want to say one thing about hip hop discourse online. Honestly, I wish people can just enjoy people's art and music without making it into an argument all the time about which artist should be recognized as greater than another artist. Because I think when it comes down to it, like to me, J. Cole and Kendrick Lamar are both necessary to exist at the same time because they both serve a similar purpose, which is to ultimately uplift hip hop into a more respectable art form. That just starts by being, competitive from the standpoint of who's gonna make the best music and the best art. Of course, conversations about sales and things like that are always gonna play a factor into who is considered better. Things like lyricism. I've been hearing a lot of conversation saying J. Cole is a better technical lyricist than Kendrick. I would say that J. Cole is very necessary to exist as Kendrick Lamar's counterpart because he makes Kendrick Lamar get better. Because to me, if Drake is Kendrick Lamar's only real competition, I think that that would make Kendrick Lamar a worse artist in the long run. And I just mean from the standpoint of like, you're really only as good as your competition. We judge basketball players, athletes based on their competition. How did you stand above your competition? Competition is important. I think that J. Cole as a competitor makes Kendrick Lamar better. When people get to hear J. Cole where he's just barring up for 4 minutes, but he's giving you deep thought about different topics. I think Cole looks at what's going on and he's like, you know what, I can't beat you in the grandiose presentation that you're putting on for the world with the Super Bowl and the Grammys and the sales and the charts and all of that. But you know what I can do? I can just out rap you right now at this moment because you're on your victory lap. You're making people dance, right? We never seen Kendrick Lamar have this type of impact in terms of appealing to the masses. Kendrick Lamar has always had an underground presence that has spilled over into the mainstream because his music is that great and is that undeniable. Great music is always going to prevail and get further than anybody can try to put a limit on it. And so I think from J. Cole's vantage point, he's looking at Kendrick like, okay, you're a TikTok rapper. Honestly, like bing bop boom boom bam. So that's cool. That's TikTok shit. Like I think the competitor in J. Cole says this and says, nigga, I'm about to lay a 48 on this track with Absol and fucking Daylight. I'm about to get on the track with whoever, whenever, and talk my shit. And he's been doing this for years. I would say J. Cole's feature run kind of started almost around the time where Kendrick kind of took a break right after the Black Panther soundtrack. But I think that whole time J. Cole was like, I'm sharpening my blade. I'm sharpening my blade. So I say all this to say that J. Cole is necessary for someone like Kendrick Lamar to get better so that when Kendrick Lamar is setting the bar, people can say clearly he stands out and he's the best of his field. Then J. Cole serves as a reminder of like, that TikTok shit is cool, but I'm still barring niggas up. So I salute J. Cole. I'm not gonna sit here and act like I listen to J. Cole all the time. One of my favorite J. Cole verses is the first verse I've ever heard from him, which was on A Star Is Born with Blueprint 3. And Blueprint 3 was the first album I ever bought. I will almost argue anybody down. That's one of Jay-Z's best albums. Jay-Z got so many memorable verses. So for J. Cole to be on that album and stand out, and he probably had the best verse on A Star Is Born, and Jay-Z took up 3 verses. Cole is set up as the next star in line. He's set up almost as like someone who came out the shadows that Jay-Z is co-signing. Cole lived up to it. For that to be Cole's first introduction, J. Cole stood out on that song, and I never forgot that. Now, I will say that as I follow his career and as his career is going on, I have not really been that fond of his studio albums. I've sensed more of a stagnation in just his sound, and like it almost sounds like he's just like a more evolved version of that struggling college student just in adulthood. And I don't say that in a bad way. I just mean to say like it's almost like he doesn't allow his perspective to broaden past being the everyday relatable man, and it just feels inauthentic to me personally. That's nothing against how he rhymes or how technically gifted he is or any of that. It's just that personally J. Cole's music, it doesn't cut it for me. Now the funny thing about Kendrick is I remember seeing that video for J-Rock All My Life with Lil Wayne. That was the first time I ever heard of J-Rock. I remember the video, they were in the ghetto, they were in the projects. It had like a nice old school sample to it, but I remember seeing somebody sing that hook in that video, and they kept flashing to this person. I was like, oh, that must be the dude singing the hook. All this time, years later, I was like, damn, that was Kendrick. That was him with Lil Wayne and with J-Rock, but it was J-Rock's video. So that was kind of, I would say, my introduction to Kendrick just visually, not even knowing that was him. Now musically, the first time I heard of Kendrick, I want to say Spiteful Chant, or it was Buried Alive. It was one of those two songs I heard around the same time, and I'm not gonna lie, I did not like Buried Alive at all. I don't know if it was because I didn't know who he was, or just the vibe of the song apart from the rest of the album. It sounded disjointed from the album. I think that was more so how it came across to me. It wasn't like I didn't think he could rap or he wasn't good. It was just like, I'm listening to this Drake album and I'm like, what's this interlude and this dude rapping like this? Just didn't understand it. I feel like that song, I would have appreciated it more if I knew who Kendrick was and I was familiar with him and it was on a Kendrick project, honestly. I feel like that's what that song was intended for. And then I heard Spiteful Chant around the same time. I just don't remember what I heard first. I didn't even know that was the same person, honestly. I was like, that's that dude from the Drake album? This shit is fucking hard, honestly. I remember at the time, 11th grade, my favorite rapper was Fabulous. Fabulous was my favorite rapper in high school for the better part of high school. So I remember getting in arguments with people because I was just like, I don't know who Kendrick is. I just kept hearing his name. He kind of came up in that same class as A$AP Rocky, Childish Gambino. Like, these are just different people I'm discovering all at the same time. It's like blog era artists like Wiz Khalifa, Currency, Dom Kennedy. And so Kendrick's name started to be set apart around that time, Section 80. This is before everything else later. I'm just thinking about the early stages where I first heard Kendrick. And so I heard Good Kid, Mad City in high school, and I was like, this album is a fucking movie. This shit is like Boys in the Hood. I remember when Born Sinner came out, it came out on the same day as Mac Miller's album and Kanye's album, Yeezus. And I remember hearing J. Cole album, and I was like, I'm going to an amusement park that was like 3 hours away. I had plenty of time to listen to it. So I downloaded all these songs from all three of their albums. Mac Miller album, Watching Movies with the Sound Off. I downloaded the Yeezus album, and I downloaded J. Cole album. And I remember listening to all three of them, and I was like, of all three of these, I think J. Cole had my least favorite album. And that was where I felt like my listening senses for J. Cole kind of ended right there, where it was just like, I'll listen to bro here and there, but for the most part, I'm not really checking for it. 2014 Forest Hills Drive came out. Oh yeah, this is that shit. And then with Kendrick, I didn't really listen to Kendrick hardcore until I got to college, honestly. And it was really me playing catch up with like Section 80, Overly Dedicated. And I was like, oh yeah, he the best. Not even really nothing to think about Good Kid, Mad City, because I'm thinking about, this is 2013 I'm talking about. I'm thinking about Overly Dedicated. I'm starting to hear for the first time. I already heard Section 80, and I heard Good Kid, Mad City. I'm like, these are three strong projects. Whereas with J. Cole, I'm like, I like some stuff off Friday Night Lights, but I don't just listen to it in its totality. I didn't really care for his other stuff, like the warm up and the come up, not in totality. More so like, I like this freestyle, I like that song, but I'm not listening to it like top to bottom, like how I'm listening to Kendrick's albums. And I think that Kendrick and Jay-Z are the two rappers that made me listen to albums top to bottom. To me, that's why they're my two favorites. I never really crossed that bridge with J. Cole, so when people argue, is he a better technical rapper? I'm like, I think he just relates more to the everyday man or people who primarily listen to music in headphones. I feel like that's where J. Cole music is kind of landing for me. It's like, and it's a lot of it is headphones, study room, college music to me, honestly. Kendrick's music is just more macro. So for me, Kendrick is more lyrically dense, and you have more nuance there to unpack, whereas with J. Cole, it's more like conversational. I feel like it's more your homie talking to you, or your homie talking to you about his life or how your lives are intertwined together. Where I feel like Kendrick's music is more about humankind and spirituality, community, purpose, and escape and experience and life and God and misdeeds and misfortunes. It's more like biblical, philosophical to me. It's more just like prophetic, honestly. So for me, Kendrick is always going to be the preferred choice. But I'm not mad if anybody wants to say that J. Cole is the more technically gifted rapper. Because to me, again, he exists there to make Kendrick Lamar better. Because it can't just be Drake is his greatest competition, because he's proven that he can just beat up on Drake when he feels like it. So if Kendrick is only competing with Drake, he's going to get artistically worse. At least if J. Cole is still viewed as a competitor to Kendrick. Okay, yeah, you're doing the Super Bowl and you winning Grammys for the peekaboo, bing, bop, boom. But I'm really rapping. I'm really barring the fuck up. And niggas is really talking about me in that light. And niggas is really saying I got verse of the year. And I'm dropping classic material. And I got got spitters on my label like JID, Earth Gang. I think for me with J. Cole, what would resonate more with me is if he lean more into celebrity. You know, that's just maybe me not able to gravitate towards the everyday man persona, because he to me he has an everyday man persona of I bike, I wear sweatpants like you, I wear tube socks over my sweatpants like you. I come out the house with a hoodie on and a Wrangler jacket like you. I just don't want that in my music personally. I don't really even have that kind of perspective on my life. So it's just like I like macro music. Jay-Z has always had macro music. It's sure it's been about him balling and success and being a D-boy and Beyonce, but it's bigger than that. For me, Jay-Z has always been like a nigga that just shifts culture and shit. Like he does it in his own way. And Kendrick's the same. You know, J. Cole is a nigga that you would see at the park or at the gym putting up 100 threes. That nigga made 60 in a row. Nigga looks incredible. His form, his jumper, his technique is incredible. I need to see you do that at game 7 with 2 minutes to go on the road to win the championship. I need to see that. I need to see a deliverance like no other. So it's like, I know you can rap, but bodies of work is what we're talking about here, buddy. This is the music business. It's not the rap Olympics. Big L and Big Pun were probably the best technical rappers of the fucking 90s. Jizza, but so fucking what, honestly. Cannabis, so fucking what. Eminem is the best technical fucking rhymer of all time, but then niggas want to disqualify Eminem for other reasons, or we just don't like his albums or his content. So then you niggas want to pick and choose what your criteria is when it's somebody who's more technically gifted than the person you're arguing for. You like to argue that J. Cole is the best technical writer or rapper or whatever. It's like, well, Eminem's more technically gifted than he is. Oh, well, I don't like his content. So then you're factoring other factors like bodies of work, albums, relatability, subject matter. So then when people with Kendrick do it, when people reply and say, well, Kendrick's albums and subject matter and this and this and this and that is better than J. Cole's this and this and that. Oh, we're just talking about bars. And I've seen this play out over time where when it comes to comparing J. Cole and Kendrick, they only want to just focus it on bars and let's not talk about subject matter and albums and song structures and who's better at song making. But when you find a better technical rapper than J. Cole, like Eminem, and you say, well, Eminem is a better technical rapper. Oh, I don't like his subject matter and his songs. So I thought we weren't talking about songs. So when it comes to Kendrick, we can't talk about songs. That's off the table. We're just talking about bars. But when it comes to Eminem, we got to bring up his songs and his albums, and you don't like the subject matter of it. That's what I'm saying. Like J. Cole fans is kind of delusional. And so the other thing that people was talking about was the whole Kevin Durant shit, where he tweeted some dumb shit and said, you know, I don't care for those fake tough guys. This is mastery. And people took it away like, you know, he's shading Kendrick or whatever. I mean, if he shaded Kendrick, you must not understand what the fuck just happened to your man. I think that Kendrick Lamar is the better song maker. I think he's the better technical lyricist. People like to do is say, name the song on GNX better than this verse or that verse. J. Cole in totality doesn't produce the bodies of work that Kendrick produces. And Kendrick makes the music he wants to make while being lyrically dense and appealing to the broad masses. J. Cole, on the other hand, he often finds himself in a trap where he can freestyle his ass off and he appeals to these old heads. It's not about whether a J. Cole freestyle is better than every song on GNX. It's like GNX is a victory lap album. We gotta understand that GNX is the album you make when you cut the head off the king of the empire that you just crumbled. J. Cole is making music that sounds like he's still on the come up, and that's my problem with him, because that's that everyday man shit that I just don't really understand. It's like, why aren't you settled into your identity? His musical identity is shaky. You know, with J. Cole, I just have a fundamental character issue with him. He doesn't stand on solid ground. He does things and he doesn't really mean them. He takes them back. And J. Cole, necessary for Kendrick to get better, but he's not better than Kendrick in a technical lyricist way, in a song-making way. And I don't really think there's any area he's better than Kendrick at. And I think all the real spitters in the game will concur.